Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Growing Kentucky's Leaders. I'm Sheldon McKinney, the Executive Director of the Kentucky FFA Foundation, and we have an awesome guest for you all today. We have Miss Casey Montgomery. She is a Spencer County FFA member, a student at the University of Kentucky, a former Kentucky FFA State Officer, and she wears so many hats. We're lucky to have her. Casey, why don't you just introduce yourself and tell people who you are and a little bit about your FFA journey.
Yeah, I am Casey. I'm from Taylorsville, Kentucky. So I grew up in the Spencer County FFA chapter. And I've really been inspired by my experiences in FFA. Growing up, I was heavily involved in agriculture on the family farm, and that kind of influenced me to join FFA in high school. And from that moment, freshman year, after seeing my sisters be in FFA, I just knew that it was the place to be. I strived to and
You're okay.
strive to include it, like to include myself in so many different opportunities throughout FFA, whether it was a contest, a leadership experience, different conferences. And ultimately that experience led me to pursue opportunities to be a state officer. So I was very fortunate to have that experience last year and get to meet so many people from across the state. There being an officer and visiting different chapters. Since then, though, after retirement, it's been a fun journey to reflect back on those experiences and also look into opportunities here at the University of Kentucky to be more involved in agriculture. So I'm involved in a lot of clubs here on campus. I serve as the college ambassador for the College of Agriculture, and I'm just growing to learn more about becoming an ag teacher in the future.
Casey, you really introduced the next question that I was going to ask you yourself. And I was just going to say that something about you in my time that I've gotten to know you is that you take just full advantage of all the opportunities that are offered. Like you get the best out of everything. And I think that's an awesome quality. I saw as an FFA state officer and now with a lot of internships and just opportunities, you just really make the best of what opportunities you're given. Especially, you took a great advantage of a recent trip. And so I want you to tell us a little bit about your recent travels and where you've been.
Yeah, so just recently at the beginning of January, I got to take part in the ILSSO experience through National FFA. And so what that is, it's the International Leadership Seminar for State Officers. And it's an experience to travel abroad to study agriculture in different cultures in a different society. And it's an application-based process for current or past state officers to apply and then be selected for this program. So I was very fortunate to get to experience this. I just spent 10 days in Australia for this experience back at the beginning of January, and we traveled to 6 different cities spanning from Sydney to Canberra, the capital of Australia, or even Melbourne. And through this experience, we just got to explore different cultural aspects. So we visited a lot of the common sightseeing places like the Sydney Opera House, the Harbor Bridge, and all of those awesome places in Sydney. And we also got to explore a lot of agricultural practices. So we saw a lot of sheep during our time there as one of their leading commodities. So you could drive down the road and see sheep grazing all the different paddocks, as they refer to their pastures over in Australia. We also experienced a lot of cattle operations. So we got to work with producers and talk with them about their livestock production. And we visited a John Deere program and corporation over in Australia, as well as some other processing plants for cotton or olive oil or even oranges. So it was a very diverse experience. I'm exploring so many different cities and so many different agriculture practices while we were there. And I'm truly blessed to have had that experience to get to witness the investment that Australian individuals have in the agriculture industry there.
That's just a trip of a lifetime. It's incredible. Had you been out of the country before?
No, that was my first time ever
Yeah.
being on a plane for that long or being out of the country. So it was pretty phenomenal to get to experience that.
Yes, that's absolutely phenomenal. If you think about the places that FFA has taken you that maybe you would not have gotten to see without your time in the Blue Jacket, where are some other places you think FFA has just opened the door for you to go and see?
Yeah, for sure. Honestly, all of my travels have been centered around FFA. So I flew on a plane for the first time when we went to Washington, D.C.
Mhm.
as a part of the State Officer Leadership Summit. I got to travel a lot with my dairy judging team back in high school. So I visited Wisconsin for the first time, Illinois for the first time. We went to Ohio and Indiana and just a lot of different places through that
Yeah.
experience. So it's really taken me out of my comfort zone by pushing me to these new places and getting to travel a lot, which has been pretty awesome.
I love that, and I hope that if FFA members are watching this in class or thinking about it, that they see how many cool opportunities there are for out there for them to get involved and see new places and new things. The first time I rode on an airplane, once when I was really tiny, but the first time I remember was with my high school agriculture teacher going to the Washington Leadership Conference, and I was terrified. And she said, "Well, like I'm going to leave you here if you don't get on the plane." So it was. Um, Great to just push me out of my comfort zone too.
For sure.
Something I want to make sure people know and share that I think is it's a really cool story is that the FFA Foundation we have an endowment program where people can give to us and then it provides long-term support of things that they care about. And so we were able to give you a partial scholarship to attend ILSSO. That was made possible because of a gentleman named Mr. John Colliver. He was the 1965, 1966 state FFA president, this
Mhm.
farm boy from Barron County, who before he passed away in 2021, I believe, but he had went to over 120 countries. He traveled the world, and part of his passion for travel was sparked by his opportunity to travel with FFA as a high school student. And so when he passed away, his wife made an additional contribution in his name and we get to help support this trip and students from Kentucky selected to go. I think that is so special that we get to do that. So we know that travel inspires people. How did this trip inspire you?
Yes, that's such a great question, and just to hear his story and how he was inspired is very inspiring as well. But when I think about this trip, I think back to when I got home and one of our group leaders sent us a text message and was like, "What is one word to describe your experience?" And one word was inspired. Just because it was not only something new for me, but it was also such an experience to be transformed through meeting the people that I was traveling with, so the fellow state officers from across the nation, but also meeting the people in Australia who were so hospitable and welcoming of us. I was truly transformed by them because they were so welcoming. They made you feel treasured and that you belonged and that they wanted to really invest in you while we were investing in getting to know them. So that was inspiring from that standpoint and just motivates me every day to really strive to invest in others because that's how we learn and we grow and we get awesome experiences. But also more so from like a leadership standpoint or someone that's coming back into agriculture here in the States, I was inspired by just their drive to make voices heard. We got to experience some conversations with the embassy as well as leaders from programs like their Future Farmers Network and their rural community development foundations. And their biggest piece of advice for us was to make sure everyone's voice is heard. They stand up for their agriculture communities in Australia, and whether it's through policy making and being lobbyists. I mean, they also just are there for their communities. And I think that's something so broad in terms of we see that here too, but also being reminded of that and seeing that in another culture and in another country as a whole was just inspiring and realizing that um, everyone's voice needs to be heard. There's so many seats at the table and we all have one, and it's so important for us to learn that and experience that. And that's something that I've brought home is to make sure that everyone's voice is heard, everyone has a seat at the table, and also to strive for diversity in all that we do. There's so many different ideas out there, and those different ideas coming together is what unites an industry or what unites a community. So I'm definitely just I just sit here in awe thinking about all of the experiences and the inspiration that it brought me, whether it was through the conversation or through the trip as a whole. So that's definitely one way that this
Yeah.
has truly inspired me.
That's awesome, Casey. I love that there's a lot of seats at the table and we all have one. There's enough for all of us. So last thing before we move on to the next phase of our interview is FFA members who are sitting in the audience who may be listening to this as a part of a class assignment or something like that, what do you want them to know about the opportunities that are before them and how they can take advantage of them?
Yeah, I think my biggest a piece of advice for anyone sitting out there is to realize that the opportunities are endless and to not be afraid to take a step outside your comfort zone. Um, Before this trip, I actually sat down with my parents and was very nervous about it. I didn't even know if I wanted to apply because I'd never been out of the country before. I never experienced something by myself, being the only one from Kentucky
Yeah.
going. So it was a huge commitment and a huge decision. And I'm forever grateful that I got this experience, but knowing and looking back that I may not have because I was too scared or too nervous about it, really has me sitting here today to tell everyone to just take the step outside your comfort zone. Growth happens there. You experience so many opportunities to motivate yourself and to push yourself in new ways. You meet a lot of new people. You build new connections. You get to strive to learn and grow when you're outside your comfort zone, and it's those experiences that you end up in because you did take that step to push yourself outside your comfort zone that are going to be rewarding down the road. So no matter what your experience is, just always take a step outside your comfort zone and pursue the opportunities that you may not have seen yourself doing.
Bravo, Casey. That's awesome. I hope people are listening and really believe that. That's great to think. If I had to let myself be scared, I would not have had this. If I did not, you were scared, but you went anyway.
Yeah.
You had the courage to go anyway. That's awesome. Well, I also want you to have an opportunity to share with people just about how the FFA Foundation has played a role in your FFA career. What are some things that have been made possible or made affordable, but because of donors to the Kentucky FFA Foundation?
Yeah, so I think so many experiences have been made affordable apart from this trip, but also during my service as a state officer, being able to travel across the state was made possible because of the foundation. Also, to kind of reflect on that a little bit more, I was transformed into a new person after that experience as an officer. I made so many connections that are still strong today. I still have members that I met during that experience who will text me when we're in the same convention or will want to meet up. And so those experiences just to build connections with others was made possible because of the people that are investing in the future of agriculture through the Kentucky FFA Foundation. Throughout high school too, just the experiences that were made possible, whether it was a trip or anything like that, that was tied to the foundation was awesome as well. So I really am thankful for not only ILSSO but also my state officer experience and all the work that's being done with the
Yeah.
foundation to make opportunities available for
Yeah.
everyone.
Well, if anyone's listening into you, it's obvious our opportunities matter. It matters. So our students matter. And so thank you all for donating and thanks for taking full advantage of what opportunities are out there. Okay. So to wrap it up, I got 3 questions for you. We ask everyone the same thing. And the first is, what is the best piece of leadership advice you have ever received?
This is a hard one. There's so much out there that can be said, but I think one of the biggest ones is that leadership is an action and to really take that action to invest in those around you. Some of the best experiences have been the conversations where we found a mutual connection and build that relationship with a member or a sponsor or donor or another professional in agriculture. So always be open to investing in those around you, making sure that they feel valued, making sure that they feel welcomed at the table when you're talking with them and that their voice feels heard. So that's definitely one of the best pieces of leadership advice I've experienced
Yeah.
is just to invest in those around you.
Yeah. Leadership is action. That's great. Okay. Next thing is philanthropy is all about giving back. And you can give back to people with your time, your talent, treasure so many ways. But who is somebody that's poured into your life that you would like to shout out to them right now?
There are so many people I can name for this, but I would definitely have to say my family.
Mhm.
They are the ones that have sat around the table to push me and motivate me to go outside my comfort zone and experience new opportunities, as well as my ag teachers back at home for all that they've done, and also just the ag teachers across the state who have taken time to invest in me. So I'm very thankful for all of those experiences and the experiences that made possible by the foundation as well, and just want to allow them to know that they're really appreciated, and I'm so grateful for all they've done in my
Yeah.
life.
Well, that's great. I know that they're so proud of you and all you've accomplished. And so the last question is, what is something that you're loving right now that's helping you grow? It could be a book, a gadget, a habit, something that's helping you grow in your leadership journey.
Yeah, so something that's really helping me grow personally right now is um, on Wednesday nights every week, my roommates and I and a couple friends just come together and have a Bible study. So we get together and just fellowship and reflect and talk with each other about how we're growing. And I think it's been so awesome for me because it's allowed me to just take a step back from the craziness or the busyness of life to just come together with others in fellowship and to relax and reflect. So I definitely recommend to anyone out there to make some time throughout your week to just take a step back and relax and uh, clear your mind from all of the stress and anxieties of the week.
That's great. Well, Casey, thank you so much for just sharing about your experiences with us. We're just so proud of what you've done and looking forward to cheering you on in the future as you become an ag teacher and just change Kentucky agriculture for the better. I'm so glad you were inspired by this trip. Thanks for being on today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so that's it, folks. Thanks for joining us for another episode of Growing Kentucky's Leaders. Growing Kentucky's Leaders is a podcast from the Kentucky FFA Foundation. The music has been performed by Bourbon County FFA member Joe Fritch. Production is provided by Isaiah Pruitt. Our artwork is by Julie Fritch Creative. Your hosts are Sheldon McKinney and Ruth Ann Fink, and you can find us on all social platforms at Kentucky FFA.